Hi scientists, it's Jessica Power, Science Coordinator with Kansas City Public Schools. We're back talking about physical properties this week. Last week, remember talking about what a physical property was? We talked about describing physical properties can be describing shape, color, size, texture, so what it feels like, and weight, so heavy, is it light? And scientists, if you remember, I had several different objects, which I have with me again. If you remember, I had a softball and a baseball, and we compared the physical properties of these two objects. And we decided, through our observation, that both of these objects had the same shape, they were both round, and they had the same color stitching on the seams. They were both red. But scientists, we also said that they have different physical properties because they're not the same color and they don't weigh the same. So while objects can be similar, they can also be different. Well, scientists, today our topic is about sorting or classifying or categorizing, whatever we want to call it, objects into similar categories. That means we find objects that have similar physical properties and we group them together. Meaning, these two objects have similar physical properties about their shape. They're both round. I could go a step further and say these three objects have a similar physical property because they're round. But then I could also say, these two objects have a similar physical property that they both have white on them. Or I could say that these two objects have a similar physical property because they're really heavy. So scientists, anytime we find a physical property that's similar between one object and another, we can group them and categorize them by those properties. So while dish soap may be blue and a blue marker is blue, they both can go into a category or a group of blue things, even though one's used for cleaning and one's used for drawing. So we can group things by similar physical properties. Well, scientists, today I'm going to read you a story about sorting. And it's going to be about this bear who sorts different objects into groups based on their similar physical properties. So I have a big book today. And this big book is called Sorting. And we're going to meet this bear. This bear's name is Mortimer, and Mortimer is going to be sorting different objects. So Mortimer the bear is picking up his toys. He's putting the animals into the red basket, the cars into the yellow basket, and the food into the blue basket. I'm making groups of animals, groups of cars, and groups of food. Putting things into groups is called sorting. Help Mortimer finish his sorting his toys. Tell him where each toy belongs. Okay, are you ready? Mortimer loves drawing. I have a group of felt pens, a group of pencils, and a group of paintbrushes. So Mortimer's sorting his art supplies by what they are. A group of objects that belong together is called a set. A set of paintbrushes, a set of colored pencils. Mortimer is sorting his clothespins into sets of different colors. I'm making a green set, a red set, and a blue set. Mortimer still has some clothespins to sort. To which pile does each belong? What about this clothespin? Do you see this clothespin? Which group is Mortimer going to add this clothespin to? Green, because he's sorting based on their physical properties of their colors. Mortimer's blocks are different shapes. I'm sorting my blocks by shape. Here are some buttons that have been sorted by shape. A set of triangles, a set of circles, a set of squares. So see how they're grouped by similar shape? Material. Mortimer's boat is made of plastic. You see his boat? His car is made of metal. Plastic and metal are different kinds of materials. Materials are just what things are made out of. These things have been sorted by material. A set of plastic objects, a set of metal objects. Mortimer is ready for a bath. My towel feels soft. The soap in the soap dish feel hard. The way something feels is called texture. Here are some more objects that have been sorted by texture. A set of soft objects and a set of hard objects. So we've got our soft objects and our hard objects. Notice, scientists, these hard objects, they all have different physical properties, but the one thing they have in common is that they're all hard. You can sort things any way you choose. All these things belong in my bedroom. Some of these objects are used in the garden. Some are used in the kitchen. Some are used in the bathroom. Which things belong together? Scientists, do you see anything that belongs in the garden? Yeah, this watering can belongs in the garden. This little scoop trowel belongs in the garden. What things belong in the kitchen? This pot belongs in the kitchen, the cup, the cheese grater, the sponge. Good. So now we're sorting based on what these objects are used for. I have sorted everything into 3 sets. Are these the things that we also identified? Yeah. I have made a set of cups, a set of saucers, a set of plates. I can also sort my dishes by color. Find some of your own toys and see how many different ways you can sort them. So scientists, that's your task. This week, I want you to go around and find a bunch of different random objects. Random means they're found in all different places and they're all different kinds of things. And scientists, I want you to go ahead and find out, make some observations, which of those objects have similar properties. And then take it a step further and sort those objects into groups of similar properties. Now, you may be able to make multiple groups using the same kind of objects. Try that this week. Try your best to go find 10 random objects. Identify, find out their physical properties, size, shape, color, texture, weight, and then sort those 10 objects into groups of similar properties. Scientists, I will see you next week. Have a great time sorting your objects and finding those physical properties, and we'll be back here next Wednesday. Have a great day. scientists, welcome back. I'm Jessica Power, one of the science curriculum coordinators at Kansas City Public Schools. Now scientists, last week we spent time learning about structures and functions of living organisms. We talked about parts of plants or structures of plants, like the petals, the stems, the roots, the leaves, and we talked about what those functions were. And the reason we talked about structures and functions of living organisms was to talk about how all living things need to survive. And there are some things, specific things, that living items or organisms need to survive. Do you remember what those were? Yeah, they were air, water, food. And then we also talked about how animals needed shelters to survive. Well, we're gonna dive really, really deep, scientists, into a specific structure this week of animals. And that structure is the brain. Now, I'm sure that you know that we need our brain to survive. And last week I mentioned that the function of the brain was to control or regulate the body. Now, the brain is the reason that we react to different things. It's the reason that we're able to learn in school. It's the reason we know when we're hungry and thirsty. And it's also the reason that we're able to play sports, or read a book, or have the temperature, or get better when we're sick. The brain is responsible for everything happening in the body. It's like the control center. So we are going to focus today on the 5 senses and how the 5 senses create this stimulus response mechanism, this feedback goes back and forth between the environment around us and our bodies and how we respond. Now scientists, the brain may be the control center, but there's many different parts of the brain. The brain itself, that sits right up top, right here, is called the cerebrum, and it's broken up into different sections. And those different sections are responsible for different things. Like the very front is called the frontal lobe, and that's responsible for a lot of critical thinking. So a lot of the stuff that you do at school for learning all happens right up here. Now, when we see things, when we take something in, right? So when I'm looking at you in the camera, or when I'm outside taking a walk with my dog to make sure that I don't trip and fall, I look through with my eyes. Now, anytime we see something, scientists, that actually gets sent to the very back of our head, called this area called the occipital lobe. And the occipital lobe is responsible for processing what we see, so that as humans, we can make the decision what to do. So if I come across a large stick laying in the middle of the sidewalk while walking my dog, my brain sees that, sends it right back to the occipital lobe, and my brain goes, hey, maybe you should step over that instead of tripping over it to help keep us safe. So let's dive in. Scientists, we have 5 senses. I'm sure you've heard that. We have sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smell. And our ability to experience all 5 of these senses comes in different ways. We call those stimulus. A stimulus is what's happening to our body so that we experience one of these senses. So I put down what these stimulus are for each of our 5 senses, because sometimes we don't always think about it. So let's go through them. The first one is sight. Now, if you've ever turned the lights off and there's absolutely no light at all in a room, you might have noticed that you can't see anything. Or when it gets dark outside and there's no lights on, it's a little bit harder. But sometimes there's a little bit of light coming in from outside or from the TV or something, so you can still kind of see the objects in the room, but maybe not the details of them. Our ability to see comes from the ability of our eyes to take in light. Now, I don't know if you've ever done this before, but if you have a chance, try this at home. In your eye, can you see my eye? You have this very, very center part that looks like a black dot, and that's called your pupil. And your pupil actually gets bigger and gets smaller. Now that circle of color around your eye, you can see that mine's blue, that's called your iris. And the iris is a muscle. And the iris's job is literally just to make the pupil bigger and make the pupil smaller. Now, the pupil changes size based on how much light is around you. So if you've ever walked outside on a really sunny day and it hurts your eyes, or in the wintertime when the sun is reflecting off the snow and it hurts your eyes and you're like, oh my goodness, that's because your pupil has started out really big, right, indoors because it wasn't super bright. And once you got outside where it was sunny and there was tons and tons of light, your pupil and your brain were going, oh goodness, and they were shrinking. So your pupil controls how much light is being let into your eye in order to see the things around you. So in order for us to see, there has to be light. Now, hearing. We hear through vibrations or sounds. If you've ever plucked a guitar string and you've seen the guitar string vibrate, that vibration is creating a sound. And that sound travels into our ear and goes through the different parts of our ear. Now touch is interesting. Touch doesn't just happen on your hands. A lot of times when we talk about the five senses, we always use the hands, right? We always say touch. I drew a hand myself. But really, touch happens all over your body. It's really your skin. You have what's called touch receptors, and those receptors take in pressure, temperature, pain, and vibrations. Vibrations. We just talked about that with hearing. Have you ever heard really, really loud music and you can feel the bass or the vibrations in your body? Not just hear them, but you can feel them? That's an example of touch. Now pressure, right? If you've ever given somebody a really hard high five, you might have felt a little bit of pain or pressure. That's being able to feel whatever you're touching. Temperature, you can sense if something's hot or cold. So if you put your hand on a hot stove, your body goes, yikes, take your hand off, that's really hot, because your hand or your skin, wherever you're touching it, has sensed temperature. Taste and smell are connected. Have you ever had a cold? And when you've had a cold, you're all stuffy, right? And you can't smell. Well, have you noticed that when you have a cold and can't smell, you also can't taste? And that's because your sense of smell and your sense of taste are connected. Now, we sense or we take in things from the environment differently with taste and smell, but where they're all processed is the very same place. So for taste, substances that break down in water or other fluids, right? So think about water or saliva. When you get that food in your mouth, you can taste those substances on your tongue. And that saliva in your mouth is breaking down that food to later be digested. Now smell is similar, but smell is from substances that are carried through the air. So this time, maybe you've ever sprayed perfume or cologne, or you've been in a different room and you've smelled food, right? Those are from substances traveling in the air for our body to smell. Now, that's great that we take in all these different senses around us and we experience all of our different senses in different ways. However, how they're processed in the body is very similar. Every time we experience something, scientists, through our five senses, our brain figures out what to redo. We always respond to our senses. Like I gave the example earlier, if I see a stick laying in the middle of the sidewalk and I'm walking my dog, she may pick it up, which may not be a problem, but my job is to see that, and then my brain tells me to step over that so I don't trip. If I'm cooking, right, if I'm making something to eat and the pan is really hot, I might have to put on like a glove of some sort so that I don't burn my hand, right? My brain is telling me don't touch that hot object. Now that response comes from our brain. And I brought this poster with me, scientists, so that we could take a look at something called the nervous system. Last week we talked about structure and function, and I talked about the structure, the brain, and how the brain keeps us alive and controls the body. Well, the brain is part of this system called the nervous system. And the nervous system is made up of the brain, the spinal cord, which actually goes down your back. If we come back over to Fred, you see these vertebrae right here? Well, this is actually, there's this open circle at the back of this vertebrae. So there's bone here, and then in the back, there's little open holes. That's where the spinal cord comes down. And then in between, let's turn Fred so I can show you. In between, you might see these little holes right here. These little holes are where your nerves come out of. So nerves, you've got your brain that's in your skull, your spinal cord that runs down your back, and then from your spinal cord are thousands of nerves. And these are the nerves right here. And these nerves go to all over in the body in order to sense different things and allow your body to respond. So a baseball player that's batting, that sees the pitch coming in, their brain is taking in that sight, that stimulus of sight, and it's going to tell the batter to swing, where they swing the bat in response, or get out of the way, or don't swing at all. So, something happens to our body through one of our 5 senses, whether it's sight, smell, hearing, taste, touch. Our body takes it in, and it takes it in and sends that to the brain. The brain goes, okay, cool, this is happening to the body, this is what we're going to do in response. And it sends that message all the way down the spinal cord to wherever that message has to go. If we're playing soccer, the brain's going to send that message all the way down to the legs. If we're batting in baseball, like I said, it's going to send it down to the arms and hands. But whatever's happening to the body, whatever stimulus we're experiencing, our body, our brain, creates that response. So scientists, it doesn't matter if we're humans, it doesn't matter if it's the squirrel crossing the road or the chicken, for that classical joke. It doesn't matter what kind of animal. All animals have some sort of structure in their body that controls what's going on. Now, a lot of times we have like pets, right? We have fish, or dogs, or cats, or maybe goats, or rabbits, or snakes, or lizards. I'm running out of things, right? We have different kinds of pets, and all those pets have a brain. And the brain of that organism tells that organism what to do. It's controlling it, but it also takes in its surroundings. Now, sometimes you might see that. So I know that when I'm at home and the doorbell rings, my dog goes crazy. She starts barking. Sometimes she starts scratching at the door. That's a stimulus of hearing. She hears the doorbell, and her response is, ooh, something's happening. I need to alert the humans in this house, right? So again, there are stimulus, there are things that happen to our body that we experience through our 5 senses, and then our body, specifically our brain, responds to those. Now, there are certain things like reaction times or reflexes. These are types of responses. Have you ever gone to the doctor and the doctor hits your knee and your knee kind of like jumps up a little bit? That's a reflex. That's your body responding automatically. And then there's reaction times, right? How quick do you react to a stimulus that's coming at you or something like that? These are different ways that our nervous system, brain and spinal cord and nerves, are helping us to survive as living organisms. So everything is connected, scientists. 2 weeks ago, we talked about acquired and inherited traits. Things that are learned are acquired traits in our environment. Well, our brain processes those, and we learn how to respond. Last week, we talked about structure and function. We talked about how there are parts of the body that help you survive, right? That function, that have a job that's really important. And this week, we went even more in depth and talked about the brain. And we talked about how there are our 5 senses that take in stimulus, right? Something that we experience in the world through our sense of sight, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling, comes into our brain, and our brain figures out what to do. So scientists, as you go through your next week, I want you to pay attention. What are some things that your body senses? What are some stimulus that occur to you or happen to you that make you have to use your sense of sight, smell, taste, touch, hearing? And then how does your body respond? Sometimes it's really interesting to kind of think about, this happened to me and this is what I did to respond. It's all stimulus response and it's all related. Scientists, have an absolutely awesome day and a great rest of your week. I will see you back here next week.
I'm Erica Mabian, iSpark STEM Coordinator for Kansas City Public Schools. This is KCPS Homeroom. Today we're going to learn about how to do computer programming. This particular program is geared towards maybe pre-K to second grade. You could create a story, write it down, or draw it out before you begin this program. That way you have kind of a storyline to go through when you start your program. Your program on Scratch Junior is going to be a block program. You also are going to need to access this from your iPad or iOS or Android device. It is an app-based program. So that will be something that you will need up front to use Scratch Junior. So let's get started with our tutorial on Scratch Junior. Why do we want to do computer programming for our littles? It allows them to have an opportunity to take their words and put them into action. How we start their action with their program is with these triggering blocks. They are all yellow in the program. How I like to start the program for the beginning of our storyline is when we click the green flag. You'll see a little bit more about these when we get to the design page. When we click the green flag, that's going to initiate the sequence of the program and tell the program to start. The start on bump is like when a program is going to do a tag. Maybe you're going to have your characters play soccer and you want your character to run up to the ball, and then when they touch the ball, you want the ball to roll. That would be an appropriate use of using the bump one. You also have an option to send a message. You have an option to start on tap, which means you can actually touch your character and get it to stop and start. And you also can send your character a message. Those are going to be the ways we start our program with your triggering blocks. Next are your motion blocks. All of your motion blocks are going to be blue. They allow your characters to have movement. You have numbers under each one, and if you tap into the number, a keypad will open and you can change that number to whatever quantity you like. And as you can see, our blocks are kind of like puzzle pieces. So they're going to connect one to the other. Our forward block going to the right, our moving up block, our turning right, our hopping, it will hop directly up and down. We have a move left, a move down, turn left, and finally, our last block is going to tell our program to go back home. So if you've given it a sequence of directions to go to, this one will make sure that your character goes right back into position as it initially started. Next, we have the purple blocks. These are our looks blocks. They have a lot of different functions, so let's go over what you could do. The first one, it says hi. You could actually click where it says hi and retype in your own message that you would like for it to say. Sometimes students use this as an opportunity to have their characters have conversations with each other. Next one is shrink. It will shrink to the size that you are wanting it to be, or you can change that number. Right now it's set to 2, but if you touch that block, you can set it to whatever number you would like. The next one is the hide. It's kind of dimmed out. It has an outline of your character. You can actually have your characters hide and be invisible. Our next block will be the grow block. So you may want to use those simultaneously with the shrink. If you have your character shrink and then you want to have them grow and reappear. Reset will have your character go back to its original size, and your show block will go alongside your hide block if you have it disappear and you want it to reappear. These are your looks blocks. Your sound blocks are the ones that our littles love the most. They're allowed to have it make sound. Depending on the character that they choose, some of the characters have programmed sounds that go with it. So you could choose whatever program you want, have your character have a sound block, and then decide on what that sound is that correlates with that character, and then you can see if you really like it. One that I never have to teach my kindergartners is play a recorded sound. They absolutely figure out that it has a microphone and that they can record. I never have to even show them. When they initiate this play recorded sound block, it will allow them to record their own voice, and then they have their character being able to speak and initiate the thoughts that they have in their mind. Our control blocks are orange. These give your program a little bit of time where you could have it do things that you may want it to do on a time schedule. We have our weight, which you can change the variable and have it be smaller or larger because you can touch that 10 and change it to something else. Set the speed. Maybe you want that soccer ball that's in your program to go really fast or slow. You can change the speed. You could have that ball stop when it hits the goalpost, or the one that the kids really love is this repeater block. This allows your program to go in a loop. You just have to put your blocks inside that puzzle piece, and then your program will be on the loop for as long as you put it. Right now it's set for 4, but if you touch the floor, you're able to change it and have it be what you would like. So let's take a look at your storyline and how you imagine your story to go and what you want your story and your characters to do. Last, we have our end blocks. These end our program. And we have end, go to page. This will have you go to a second page if you have change of scenery or if you have several pages like you're creating a book. And the last one is repeat forever. So if you have something that you want to have on a continuous loop, you're going to use the repeat forever block. What does our program look like on the stage? This is your programming area. This section allows you to gain your characters. If you click the plus, you'll have access to lots of characters. You can save your program. You can have a grid. Say you want to do some math. You want to have your character sit at 4 and 3. You could use a graph in order to initiate that. You can change your background, add a text, click the green flag. It's going to initiate your program. And here are the stage or the backdrops that you will be able to choose from if you've chosen several pages. Along this section are your block categories where you get to choose all of those blocks, and you're going to drag your blocks down to the programming area. What does that look like? For the backgrounds, here are lots of choices. If you want one, simply tap that section that you want and then click the check mark, and that will select your background. Next are your characters. If you want a character, you simply touch your character. It will outline in orange, and then you'll click the check mark. Now this is what your programming stage is going to look like. There are lots of different options. As you can see, I've pulled down some blocks to have it in our program. I've added characters. I have a cat, a barn, and a chicken in my stage here, and I've also changed my background to be a farm stage. So I'm all ready to have my program be initiated and see what things can happen. When I told it to click the green flag, he's going to go 1 space to the right, hop up 4 times, and turn, hop 2 1 time. Then this one is when I touch him, he's going to turn to the right, turn to the left, and that one is on a loop, and they're going to do that 4 times. These are all the definitions and categories that we have listed for the numbers there, and you can play around with that and see how you can add things to your program and have it mirror the story that you have outlined. So if you've created a story, maybe you've written it down on a page with your parents, now you're ready to make your program come alive. Let's program your story. My story is, there once was a cat who lived on a farm. The cat walked over to the chicken. This scared him, and the chicken turned and turned. So how did I make that into a computer program? Let's check it out. First, I added a cat, a barn, and a chicken as my characters. I'm programming my cat now because my cat is in the stage section. Now I've added a control block, the event block. Click the green flag, turn, 1 space, hop 4 times, hop 2 times. And that meant that when I click the green flag, that's going to initiate my cat to start going. But when he bumps into the chicken, he's going to turn 4 times. And that will match what I've created in my story. Your options are endless, and having your program do what you would like for it to do. You can add new pages to your story. You can add new characters to your story. You can make all the changes that you'd like. There are no right or wrong answers. It's all just fun. This completes our programming with Scratch Junior. Remember to have your iPad ready for that app, and you're able to start with your Scratch Junior and create your own storyline. Please join us at Twitter with all of your pictures of the things that you're learning from doing Scratch Junior. Tag us at KC Public Schools and use the hashtag KCPS.Homeroom. Have fun coding!
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's Dr. Jones here. Now today we're going to do something a little differently. Normally I have a segment for my middle school students and a segment for my high school students. But today I'm actually going to be talking to both groups, and here's why. When you're looking at standards and really when you're looking at science, especially starting at the very low or the very young age group, we just build on what you already know. We increase the level of information and the depth of knowledge. So what I'm going to be doing today is actually showing you how some of the same standards and same information you learn in middle school comes back around and you learn it again in high school. And to do that, we're going to start with this topic, from atoms to ecosystems. Okay? Now, first of all, let's talk about our standards, because we always want to go back to the standards. If you notice, both of these standards, one for middle school, 6-8, one for high school, 9-12, both have the PS1A1. So that lets you know that they're linked. But here's the difference. In this standard, we're talking about molecules and really atoms and the model of an atom. Meaning, okay, what does an atom look like? In this part of the standard, we're taking it one step further and saying, okay, well, how are atoms organized? So in this segment, we're going to be talking about atoms and how that will then lead into our discussion about life on this planet. Okay? So, first off, what is an atom? Now, for those of you who have those Twitter fingers that are just like Google fingers, you probably get, oh yeah, I know what atom is. Atom, smallest unit of matter. Okay, cool, marvelous. But I have a question for you. What's matter? Now, for some of you, you know this off the top of your head, but for others, you're like, no problem, Twitter fingers. Oh, yeah, got it. Matter. Anything that has mass or takes up space. That's also called volume. So then my question to you is, okay, good, mass, wonderful, you got that. Matter, good, wonderful, you got that. But what does that mean? I mean, how do you measure mass? What do you measure mass in? There's a unit for everything. For example, if I say, oh, give me the time, you're going to give it to me in hours, minutes, seconds. If I say, how fast is something going? You're going to say either kilometers per hour, miles per hour. When you start talking about mass, you're really talking about grams. And when you're talking about volume, you're talking about liters. Case in point, if you go down to the store and you want to get something to drink, you're going to get yourself what? A 2 liter. Or a 1 liter if you're at the convenience store. Or you're going to get yourself what? I don't know, 24 ounce drink, 34 ounce drink, 32 ounce drink. Yeah, I don't think that's 24. Yeah, there is a 24. We won't even want to talk about 40s. That's for when you get older. Alright, so moving right along. So let's talk about matter versus not the matter. Now, before we go on with this discussion, I can tell you right now. Some people know who this kid is. Others are like, what you doing with that ugly baby on screen? Alright, I'm about to date myself, which basically means I'm about to tell you how old I am. If you don't know who this is, do me a favor, call your mom and them. Mom and them is the way we say in New Orleans, your mom or your dad. Say, hey, mom, that man on the television said he needs you to come sit here and talk to me. Here's why. He said, tell me who this is. So, basically, I'll give you the short version of it. There was a show called Dinosaurs. In the show, there was a baby. The baby had a dad that he never called dad. He called his dad not the mama. Not the man. Corny. Dad joke. I'm a dad, so I'm working in the realm of what I can do. All right. So, let's talk about matter versus not the matter. All right, so back in the day, we used to play a game called 20 Questions, which you had 20 questions to ask to figure out this unknown entity, whatever it was. And entity means just anything, right? So there was one question that you would say, okay. Is it an animal, a vegetable, or a mineral? Well, here's why people ask animal, vegetable, or mineral. If you think about your animals, do they have mass? Yeah. You know, I got a dog at home. She's a little dog. She weighs like 25 pounds. If I convert that into kilograms, I don't know, that's like 12.5, something crazy like that. Anyway, she has mass. Does she take up space? You better doggone right she take up space. She try to take up space in my bed. I'm like, we good, but we ain't that good. I'll let you get the sofa. I'll let you get a little room on the side, but you're not getting in my bed. Ain't working. All right? Vegetables, fruits and vegetables. We know these things have mass. Go to the grocery store. There's a scale there. You want to know how many bananas you're going to be? You buy bananas by the pound. You don't buy them by the banana. And if you're in a place that sells bananas by the banana, please leave, because they're going to gut you for your prices. They're going to take all your money. You don't mess with them. And then minerals, rocks. Everybody knows rocks. They take up space. And everybody knows rocks have mass. But let's get to the things that we deal with every day that don't fall in this realm. For example, light. How much space does light actually take up? Let's be real. There's light in this room right now. Can I put it in a box? No. Sound. Sound waves are traveling back and forth. Tell me something about how much sound I'm putting out right now. 50 pounds? 60 pounds? And then heat and energy. If you think about it, none of these things have mass and volume. Therefore, they're not matter. All right, so we're going to play a little game. Your turn. Matter, not matter. Let's start with the first one. Water. I'll give you a little time. Matter, not matter. All right, so check it out. Does water take up space? Yeah. We just said you can buy a gallon of water. Gallon is a number that coincides with volume. Does it have mass? Yeah, water's heavy. Try to pick up like 5 gallons of water. You're going to have to put your back into it. So water, that's matter. Air. Oh, is air matter? Well, let me ask you a question. If you put air in your tire, what are you measuring it in? Pounds. Is pounds a form of weight? And is weight related to matter as far as mass? Yes, it is. And when you put that air in the tire, does it take up space? Yes, it does. So air is what? Matter. Fire. Okay, I'm going to make this one easy. So, you go in the grocery store. Dad said, hey, look, I'm going to do a cookout. All right, cookout. Great, wonderful. Go to the grocery store. You say, hey, look, I need to get like 5 pounds of chicken. Cool, 5 pounds of chicken. I need to get 2 bags of charcoal. Okay, 2 bags of charcoal. Does your dad then go and say to the butcher, yeah, give me like 10 pounds of fire? No, because fire has no mass. So if fire has no mass, fire is not matter. Earth. Come on now. Rocks? Soil? Does that take up space? Yes. Does that have weight? Yes. So is that matter? Yes. So here's the thing I want to bring to a whole. If you ever saw the movie Avatar, remember there's a TV show with a little kid, and then there's a show, or the movie. In the live action movie, if you recall, firebenders had to take fire and then bend it. Here's why. If you look at water, it's matter. He can control water. If you look at air, it's matter. He can control matter. You look at earth, it's matter. How do you make fire out of thin air? Right. That's what we call cartoon/movie magic. Alright. Let's bring this all up. So, just like you have states of being, states of existing, you have states of matter. Now, states of matter are not just like, Missouri, Arkansas, Kansas, and Oklahoma. No. States of matter is basically, how can I find matter? What does matter look like when I find it? So, there's 4 states of matter. I know. Folks are like, 4 states of matter? I thought there was only 3. Plasma. Yeah. So, like I said, we start you off here at the low level. We tell you there's 3. We know there's 4. Because here's the thing. When you start getting to like neon lights, when you start getting to like plasma screen TVs, when you get to like the sun, now you get to this other state of matter, plasma, that is going to take me longer to explain it than for you to understand it. But think about it like this. It's not quite a gas, but it's not quite a liquid. Okay? So, notice what you have here. You have solids, you have liquids, you have gas, you have plasma. What's the difference? The amount of energy. Energy is not matter, but energy matters. Right. There's some things that ain't matter that matter, and there's other things that are matter that don't matter. Let me make it plain for you. Right now you're listening to me, but there's a lot of people that's listening to me and they got the little chick on Snapchat or Twitter, and you're just like, yeah. I'm gonna tell you right now, that little girl, especially if she ain't your girlfriend, she don't really matter right now. I know I didn't say that out loud, but she doesn't. This matters. Now, after you have, some cash on you and stuff like that, then she'll matter. But right now, let her ride. She'll be okay. All right, now, let's talk about the atom. Because again, remember, that's where this whole conversation started. It started with what? Atoms. Right. So, when we look at atoms, understand that atoms have a certain order to them. Here's what I mean. All atoms have a proton, or protons. All atoms have neutrons. All atoms have electrons. The proton is the positive part, the electron is the negative part, and the neutron is the neutral part. Now, a lot of people get neutron confused with negative. They're thinking neutron negative, neutron negative. No. Think neutron neutral. Or think neutron, Jimmy Neutron. Yeah, I didn't put the picture up because, I could only get away with one Nickelodeon character. I start putting 2 on, then people gonna be looking for me like, Dr. Jones, you put my kid. Yeah, I don't want that. So anyway, here's what I want to say about Jimmy. Jimmy Neutron was a character that wasn't really good. He wasn't really bad. He was a real smart kid, but he wasn't a mean kid. He was like even keel. Neutral. Neutron. Alright, so we got our atom here. Now, one thing that I wanted to bring your attention to is this side. Nucleus. Here's why. You've heard nucleus before. In terms of this, a cell. Now, here's the deal. The nucleus of a cell is where all the business happens. This basically tells the cell what it is, why it's there. The nucleus of an atom does the same thing. The nucleus is what really identifies an atom as who it is and what it can do. Got it? So anytime you see a nucleus, don't think of it as control center as much as identifier, because inside a cell, the nucleus houses your DNA. Your DNA says who you are, what you do. Inside the nucleus of an atom, you have your protons and your neutrons. The protons tell an atom who it is and what it can do. Okay? So, again, if you look at an atom, your mass is here, protons plus neutrons. It takes up space with the protons, neutrons, and electrons. That's why all matter is composed of atoms, and why an atom is the smallest unit of matter. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I want to bring your attention back to our standards, okay? Because again, remember, we're talking about how middle school and high school come together, and how although we're talking about the same topic, we go from middle school, which is like level 1, to high school, which is like your level 15, all right? So we have already talked about an atom, what it is, what it's composed of. Now we're going to get to the arrangement side of this, the periodic table. And here's why. Order out of chaos. Ladies, if your closet looks like this, there's a whole lot of chaos. But here's the thing. If you really, really, really want to up your game, you want to get it like this, to have order. Well, let's talk about atoms. Because again, we just said atoms are the smallest unit of matter. And we already identified that matter's everywhere. So how are we going to take all this matter and group it up? Well, there was a guy, Dmitri Mendeleev. He's Russian. So Dmitri, he's a scientist. And so he's sitting around, you know. And I know that because Kevin, who's Dimitri's friend, Kevin told me. So not my words, these are Kevin's words. Kevin said, yeah, me and Dimitri, yeah, we were hanging out one night, you know, and we went home to his house. And so he gets in the house and his wife says, Dimitri, you got all these atoms all over the place. You got to organize them, make them look better. He's like, because, you see, you got a SIG. So, all right, babe, all right. I'm going to do a little something with it. So Kevin's sitting over there on the side. Dimitri's like, let's figure out what we're going to do with these atoms. So Kevin's like, all right, what are we going to do? So Dimitri says, okay, well, if we look at carbon, for example, we got a carbon 12, we got a carbon 13, and we got a carbon 14. Kevin said, So what you going with? Dimitri says, so Kevin, look at this. You have 6 protons here. You have 6 protons here. And you have 6 protons here. Kevin like, okay, good. 6 protons. What you trying to say? He's like, notice, Kevin, 6 neutrons, 7 neutrons, 8 neutrons. All of this is carbon. What didn't change? Kevin was like, the protons. He said, exactly. So protons have something to do with an element being an element. But Kevin said, okay, well, how about the electrons? He said, okay, let me look at this again. So then he said, oh, look at this. Isotopes, right? He said, look, again, nitrogen, 7 protons, 7 protons, 7 protons. All right? 7, 8, 9. All nitrogen. He said, okay, you showed me 2 examples of the protons and the neutrons. I got it. Protons have something to do with it. But what about the electrons? He said, hold on. So then he started mixing up solutions. Now here's the thing. Metals, depending on how many electrons, will act differently. Here's what I mean. So you got something called vanadium. With vanadium, if you have a +5, which means it lost 5 electrons, it has like a goldish color. If it only loses 4, it's a light blue. If it loses 3, it's green. If it loses 2, it's purple, but it still has the same number of protons. Same thing for chromium. Same thing for magnesium. Same thing for iron. He was like, Kevin, do you see what I see? Kevin was like, yeah, man, Electrons deal with the color. He's like, no. Protons stay the same, but electrons can change. He was like, I got it. So, if you look at the periodic table, here's what Dimitri was able to show. If you go 1 proton, 2 protons, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you can line up all of your elements based on the number of protons. And for those of you who are in chemistry right now, that is called the atomic number. So what is the atomic number? The number of protons. Now, I'm going to hit you with this one. I just told you, all matter has to have neutrons and electrons and protons. And when we look at matter, we're talking about our atom. We said that the electrons are on the outside, but in the middle, the nucleus is the proton and the neutron. So when we talk about the mass, we're talking about what? Protons plus neutrons. So Dimitri created not all of this, but a good bit of this. So now we have this periodic table. Dimitri is like, yes, I've done it. But you know how everybody goes. They look at your work and they're like, you know what? I can do a better job than that. So here's what happens. Dimitri created this. Somebody comes after Dimitri and says, wait a minute, I got a better way of doing this. Let's look at the periodic table and break it up based on metals, metalloids, and non-metals. Think of it like this. Stuff that's solid, that's a metal. Stuff that acts like a metal. Stuff that doesn't act like a metal and could be a solid, a liquid, or a gas. Now, I have to say one thing. Everybody knows about quicksilver. That's mercury. It's a liquid and it's a metal. But for everybody else, you know. Now, we're going to pick up this conversation. But I want to let that marinate. Because basically, what I've said to you guys, you've listened to for like the last 2 weeks. But here's what I want you to understand. We're about to take this conversation from just a single atom to now a single cell. I want to thank you guys for watching. As always, I will see you next time. Have a good day.